So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm a Dutch Mancunian, in case you're wondering about the name VanGestel. So, English accent, Dutch origin. Good to be back in the motherland today. Nice to see all you Dutchies. I'd like to introduce my guests, Nicolas Daisomont from Alshaya Group, one of the largest retailers in the Middle East, one of the largest brand franchise operators in the world. How many brands do you have, Nicolas?
We're at 71 and counting.
71 different brands represented across QSR, across grocery, across all kinds of luxury and lifestyle.
And the UK as well now.
And now in the UK, all right. And over to my right, David Billings runs EPAM's global retail media and data monetization practice, which is a mouthful. We'll call it digital marketing solutions for now. So what we wanted to talk about today was just the whole area of AI as it applies to consumer goods companies, as it applies to retailers. We want to talk about the culture of adoption and what that means when you're actually a big company like Alshaya, and how you begin to implement machine learning, how you begin to apply data science across the organization at scale. And then we also want to talk about media effectiveness. What's the role of AI in terms of not just media planning and buying, but also in terms of content creation? What does it mean for the creator community as well as the media community? And we'll talk a little bit about that with David. So maybe I'll kick off with you, Nicolas. How's AI adoption in Alshaya? What's the story there? How's it going? Is everyone being replaced by automation, or
yes, effective tomorrow there is a massive layoff wave. No, so basically it's quite interesting as a journey because, with EPAM as a partner, we were kind of restarting the whole data journey within Alshaya, and basically we decided to restart our whole customer 360 data products from absolute scratch about 3 years ago, and we're super happy to say that about 2 years and a half after that, we have launched our own media retail network that just went live in the second country about 2 weeks ago. So within 2 years, we managed to go from still having very fragmented customer information to a single customer view to then being able to monetize on that data immediately. So that's already without the help of AI specifically on that, it was already quite a journey. Now, of course, thanks to all of these AI jumps that we've made in the last 2 years, which I can't believe I'm saying it's 2 years. I don't know if any of you has gotten sick of using GPT yet or Copilot, but I'm still learning things. And so now we're enabling a lot of different use cases when it comes to enhancing those customer profiles, data, etc., that we would not have been able to before embarking on that journey of revamping our data landscape, let's put it that way.
And so you have brands like H&M and Chipotle. Yeah. I mean, who are the winners, who are the losers within your group?
Everybody's a winner.
Okay.
Alshaya is quite interesting in terms of a retail group because we go from hospitality to apparel to beauty. So we have brands like Charlotte Tilbury, we have Boots, we have the Cheesecake Factory, we have Chipotle now, H&M, Alo Yoga, if you've heard of it, Foot Locker. So it's really interesting in how we're able to build customer profiles because we pretty much have one of every consumer segments in there. So we're able to quickly build some very holistic type of personae around our customers. So typically, some of the ones that we've been building of late would be the social diner. So who's going to eat at the restaurant with their family or with other people rather than just having an iced tea by themselves, for example? That would be one. Or simply put, who has kids? There you go. How can we make sure that when you buy an article for a child once, that you're not tagged as you have a kid? All of these are use cases where AI has come into play.
And you cross-sell between the brands. So if I go to Mother Care, I can also then get a burrito deal from Chipotle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Very good.
While you're waiting for your wife shopping, you can go get a burrito.
Okay.
No, so obviously we have a central loyalty program that's central to Alshaya. So that loyalty program covers 71 brands for the moment, and of course, as any business, we try to keep our customers coming back to our brands, and that's where things like propensity to purchase models are very important. Because due to I think we're at, if I'm not mistaken, we're close to 8 million customers in our loyalty program, and we have close to 18 million uniquely identifiable customers in our platform. So that makes it basically one of the biggest in the Middle East. There you go. Which allows us to create models like propensity to purchase, where if you've purchased several times at H&M, hey, we might give you, an offer to go visit Alo Yoga, for example. Or if, I don't know, you've been eating a bit too much at Chipotle, we might give you a sports membership through Foot Locker.
That's my profile. That's definitely my profile. David, moving on to you. Media, this big area, but kind of what are you seeing as the kind of major trends in modern media? Like, how is AI changing the game in terms of planning and segmenting audiences and reaching them and building better engagement, if it is at all? Maybe it's not.
Yeah, I think it certainly is. I think paid media in particular is a really interesting domain because it typically forms such a large line on a large brand's P&L. I don't know how much you spend on paid media at Alshaya.
I can't disclose that.
It's going to be a lot. So it's this huge investment pot, and what you've seen probably over the last 5 years is this explosion in complexity of the paid media landscape. And that's been driven by things like, in Europe, GDPR, meaning that people have to be much more privacy compliant, and so you get these kind of all of these walled gardens spinning up as people are sharing less of their data. It's driven by cookie deprecation, whether Google will or will not pull the plug on that. It's also driven by things like the rise of retail media networks, which offer this fantastic opportunity for brands, but it also means that over the last couple of years, you're probably having to deal with 10 new individual walled garden environments, each with their own technology stack. And that makes even executing very, very simple use cases, like figuring out how much money you're going to distribute across each of those individual platforms, very, very hard to deliver in an optimized way. And so on the one hand, you've got this kind of trend that's around increasing complexity that makes even kind of basic applications within paid media, like budget distribution, very, very tough to handle. On the other hand, you've almost got this kind of competing trend, which is that increasingly large advertisers are deploying almost these kind of intelligent orchestration layers that can sit on top of all of that complexity, typically built in cloud, typically leveraging the fact that most of the kind of the executional platforms now have pretty good read-write APIs. And so you can pull data in and out of them in a fairly streamlined way. And the kind of probably the biggest innovation we've seen over the last year or so that I've been interested at the impact of is taking something that a brand might have had for quite a long time, like a smart predictive model, so that you can take that historical campaign data and you can use it to make forward-looking predictions about optimal budget distribution. And actually just making that much, much more applicable in a daily business setting by taking that back-end model and then training a large language model on the typical types of discussions that happen around media planning, and then putting those two together. And what that means is that you take all of the latency that would normally come around running that model out of the system. Normally you would have a media planner write a brief, they would give that brief to a data scientist, the data scientist would translate it into a SQL query, and a week later you would get the result saying this is how you should optimize your campaign, but the result probably wouldn't be perfect. But if you want to iterate on it, you've got to wait another week. So you end up using that kind of approach for your biggest, most important campaign of the year. But if you take this approach where you take a kind of conversational front end to that model, you can literally give it to a media planner or a brand manager, and they can conversationally say, I've got $10,000 to spend, what should I do? And they can actually talk to that predictive model. And the really cool thing about that is you then embed the use of these models into your day-to-day life. So you've still got the kind of the traditional ML model doing the hard work of making the predictions, but now you've kind of democratized the usage of that across the business. And where we're seeing the adoption of these types of approaches, it's almost mitigating the rising complexity because it makes it much, much easier to orchestrate that very, very fragmented underlying ecosystem.
Interesting.
But so to offer a counter thing. So basically one of the big difficulties that every business is facing today is the data culture or AI culture that goes from it. So typically speaking, those solutions are fantastic, and obviously it's everybody's wild dream to be able to get to that. Some of the difficulties that we've had at Alshaya, for example, is to get people to start thinking more data. And when it comes to things like full funnel modeling, et cetera, to understand where to better put our money in terms of channels, what has the highest revenue. These are still things that you need to work on a lot with business so that they're not only familiar with the concepts, but they understand them, and they're happy to make decisions on the back of them. And that's where we've had to put a lot of effort, because basically culture eats the technical part for lunch when it comes to that adoption part.
You're right, and I think there's two challenges there. One is around trust. So do you trust that this model is going to do a better job than your own kind of gut feel? Like, oh, we should put 20% on Facebook and 10% on Google, and that feels about right. And that can take time to foster. And you need to show that this is generating an improved output. The other thing, though, I think is just usability. Like, you've got to make people's lives easier. And I think that can often be the biggest impediment to data literacy, is if a year ago, the way to make your team more data literate was to get them to work more closely with your data science team. That can throw up friction in their day-to-day processes. If the way to do it is to create a model that you can literally say, hey, I've got another 10K to spend, like, what should I do? And you create this kind of co-pilot approach where you can easily weave that into your existing day-to-day processes, then you start to get adoption happening more quickly. But I totally agree, like the smarts of building the thing is one thing, the other thing is thinking about the actual user journey for your internal business users and making it easy to interact with. And you crack that, like, you're not going to solve the trust problem overnight, but you're off to a pretty good start.
So that's where our general approach to AI in the company has been to foster more of a culture of entrepreneurship, where we're actively engaging people to test things, try things. Of course, budget always becomes kind of a sticky point on that part, but as long as it's not too expensive, go ahead. And that's where we've actually seen much more drive in adoption. So the way we're actually promoting these cases is, for example, we have a data club that happens every 2 months, where we showcase use cases from business people that are using these tools and are using them in a way that generates ROI, to actually encourage others to try cases like that.
I love that. Yeah, creating, I mean, it's the same with any rollout, right? This is nothing new, but like creating that evangelism and avoiding technology coming in and saying, here's a new tool that we're going to push to you. But like, if you can find the young guy in the business who's willing to get their hands on this and actually use it, and then get them to talk to their peers about how it's augmented their job and made their life easier, that's the way you're going to get buy-in more quickly. It's a smart approach.
Great. A lot of the conference today have been talking about creativity and innovation. I think through the lens of retail, I know competitors like Carrefour have done a lot of exciting stuff with conversational AI, and they've kind of...
I don't agree.
There's maybe some French people in the room that would agree with me. But anyway, how do you see it from a retail perspective? Obviously, you're creating content, you're creating new kind of levels of empathy with those various different segments of your audiences.
So I would say that, so we've been a bit reticent to put AI in contact with the customer directly.
Yep.
So our use cases have been more, just say, conservative and more on the back end. Where we are using it heavily in terms of content creation is, well, basically, I'm part of the data team. There is a stigma that says that we are not always great presenters. Well, now with certain tools, we can easily start creating content internally, videos, keynotes that we can circulate throughout business. And this has been mostly our go-to in terms of content generation, etc. It's either through enhancing certain business processes or communications within business to foster that data culture, or to simply go ahead and try and enhance our data through either those models or, for example, recategorizing our products or trying to get some insights out of those.
Okay, fantastic. We're at 5 minutes. Who has a question for our panel? Here we go. Let me just pass over this microphone.
Hi, very interesting talk. I was curious, from a marketing perspective, Consumer 360 is very, very attractive. It's an attractive proposition from the marketing end. But how do you measure the effectiveness of, C360 and how it actually helps on the ROI?
The great news is, it's okay, I'll keep this one. The great news is that we didn't have one before, so ROI is infinite on this one. So it's really interesting the way that we've managed to enhance or optimize our personalization and outreach to our customers. Basically, one of the big returns feedbacks that we were having before the implementation of this as the single source for our CRM, our campaigns, our clienteling, etc., is that people were getting bombarded by 71 brands all the time. So imagine during Black Friday or peak seasons, etc., you could be getting 3 text messages per day, per brand from Alshaya. So that, first of all, we saw...
You weren't popular at home.
No. I was like, Alshaya was not popular with me at that time. So I would say that just in terms of CSAT, we saw a big jump in terms of satisfaction with the exchanges that we had. And I think that also comes to that personalization part, where now customers are way more discerning in when it's spray and pray. And basically you might be losing money as well as a business by not personalizing your offers and giving them to everybody, mostly in the lines of propensity to purchase models, etc. So yeah, so overall we've seen jumps depending on the use cases of close to 10-fold in terms of conversion, for example.
Great. Another question over here, if I can reach over. All right.
Hello, thanks for the insightful talk. My question is, do you have any experience working with advertising agencies? Because we represent advertising agency, and sometimes our clients doesn't keep their data and they don't have developed data cultures. And also the second question regarding marketing mix modeling, do you have experience with working with this kind of softwares, and would like to listen to your experiences. Thank you.
I can answer and then you want to add. So it is I once upon a time worked for the marketing agency as well, and it's always a challenge being downstream of the brand that you're representing in terms of both your proximity to the business and also the data you have access to. And the one advantage that you have is typically you're sitting on very valuable troves of campaign data. So and most marketing agencies can go a long way in maximizing the value that they're getting back from that. So there's probably value you can get from mining the data sources you have. And I think beyond that, there's always a trust issue with you. It's not necessarily the data quality that's available from the brand. It's also a trust issue with shipping more data to you. One of the things that we do between brands and marketing agencies is work on kind of data collaboration platforms. So you create third spaces, or you create spaces within the brand's own infrastructure that agencies then come in and work on. And I know sometimes for agencies that's a bit uncomfortable because you're having to adopt more friction in your process by working in your brand's infrastructure. But if the use cases that are supported are valuable enough, then there can be enough of a draw to do that. And then in terms of MMMs, yes, we do a lot with MMMs. A really interesting use case I've seen with MMMs recently is the same approach I was describing earlier with putting a conversational front end on them. The problem with MMMs is you run them every 3 or 6 months and people forget about them and no one uses them day to day. So making them easier to interact with, again, is quite a good way to make them better used within the business. And showing actually that if you're trusting the results, you can generate longer term benefits.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
We've got probably time for one more question if anyone over here.
Thank you. Great talk. We heard that 360 view on the customer is a dream for marketers, but I think it's a nightmare for lawyers, for the legal team, considering kind of global reach of your brands, different categories you're working in. How do you manage legal consent when it comes to kind of building kind of segments, also pushing these maybe to advertisers to retarget or lookalike building for based on these segments?
So I'm going to make everybody jealous here because we don't have GDPR in the Middle East. So we are tied to much less stringent rules when it comes to consent management, etc. I think this is something that it's not that I think. We are heavily investing in that right now for consent management because obviously, like you said, with the amount of platforms that we're dealing with, the brands, etc., just the matrix of who can be contacted for who, what, when, and how is very annoying to manage. So As of right now, we've put in place our own sort of consent management where we have agreed with legal, which is always a fun compliance subject, who can we contact in case of what. And basically, we're lucky enough to have that loyalty system that trumps all the other platforms on top. So basically, most of our comms are going from our loyalty system. And if you've given consent through Aura, you can do that. So, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for exactly on 20 minutes. If anybody wants to have a conversation, we'll be outside of the room. Very happy to have a chat. Thanks for listening.
And I invite everybody to check out Alshaya Media Connect. So,
okay.
There you go.
That advertisement's going to cost you, by the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.